This is Jesse Zimmerman at the pro-democracy rally for Egypt and Tunisia at Yonge-Dundas Square. I see people from the Peace Alliance. Sid McComb, what are you doing here today? What organization are you with?
Canadian Peace Alliance.
And what are they doing here?
We're out here to help defend the Egyptians' democracy movement and call on Stephen Harper to take a firm stand and actually say support the democracy activists in Egypt, don't support the Mubarak government.
Has he come out supporting the government yet, or either side?
No, Stephen Harper has been particularly mealy-mouthed on this and has not really said much of anything except he regrets violence, right? I mean, this is the kind of thing that we're getting from the Western powers because ultimately Mubarak is their henchman in Egypt and they want to keep him in power, but at the same time they can't be seen as being against a democracy movement. So They're stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit, but we're saying to Stephen Harper and to the federal government that they need to stand up and say we support the Egyptian activists.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time. That's from the anti-war movement here in Toronto. So we see a bunch of Egyptian flags and Tunisian flags. This rally was originally just for Egypt, but then it was extended to be for Tunisia as well. So it's a pro-democracy rally. Defend Egypt's democracy, Mubarak out now. That's signs that are being given out from the Canadian Peace Alliance. And the square's starting to fill up. More people are expected, I believe, but we're going to have to see. It's just a little bit after 1 right now. Essie, you're a York student, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you have anything to say on this? What brings you out here?
Solidarity. What else?
Yeah. Do you believe this is the start of a change?
Hope so.
Thanks. If you have anything else to say, let me know. So the demonstrations began in Egypt on the 25th, and the Tunisian demonstrations started on months before, and the Tunisian president's already left, but Mubarak hasn't left the country yet. Some are saying this might be a revolution in Egypt. Barack Obama is calling for reforms, and Hillary Clinton is calling on the Egyptian government, a huge U.S. ally in the region, to do reforms. Mubarak has fired the current government. However, he hasn't made any promises to leave or whatnot. He's refusing to leave. I'm with Professor David McNally. What brings you here today? York professor?
I'm here to support the democratic upheaval by the people of Egypt, Tunisia, and across the region. This is a historic moment where the demands for bread and freedom are coming together, for democracy and for economic and social justice. It is a fantastic moment for everybody who cares about social justice, and I wanted to add my support today.
Are you optimistic yourself?
I am optimistic. I think that Tunisia shows us that if the people stay mobilized, if they understand that the power lies with them, that they have the capacity to effect real mass democratic change, then they can force Mubarak out in the very same way that Ben Ali was forced out of Tunisia.
Okay, do you have anything else to add?
Just that it is an inspiring moment, that the people of large parts of the world are now really standing up for bread and for freedom, and it makes me immensely hopeful.
All right, thanks so much for your time.
Okay.
I'm here with...
Naveen Reda.
And you are?
I'm an Islamic scholar.
Okay, and...
A scholar of Islam.
And you are from Egypt?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, could you tell us a little bit about the situation and what you think this means for the long term?
Well, the situation is pretty desperate in Egypt right now. People have suffered under the regime of Mubarak for 30 years, and they've said that enough is enough. The problem is he doesn't seem to be listening to what the people are saying. He's intent on staying, and people are dying on the streets. There's something like 100 deaths or more in the streets, and every day that he stays in power, he puts the people of Egypt at risk from confrontations between the people who are demonstrating and between the security forces, and I just don't think that that is responsible at all. I think he needs to leave. The people have sent out a message very clearly. They want him to leave, and he is just not listening.
And 30 years, how come it's taken so long for people to say enough is enough?
People have been saying enough is enough. There's a whole movement called Kifaya, which means enough. However, the impetus behind these demonstrations is that people saw that Tunisia the people were successful with demonstrations, and that is what gave people hope that having a say, demonstrating in the streets it will lead to a positive change, or it can lead to a positive change. So what changed right now is that people have hope that their participation will actually lead to some good.
Okay, and anything else you want to add for the demonstration today, or what you think is going to happen in the future?
Yeah, well, I want to say I'm not happy with the way certain Western powers have been talking about putting meaning behind Mubarak's words, that Mubarak needs to put meaning behind his words. That is against the will of the people. It's disrespectful of the will of the Egyptian people. They have said very clearly they do not want to give him a second chance. Nothing else will do but for him to leave. He's had 30 years of second chances, and people just don't want him anymore. So I would call upon the people who are suggesting that Mubarak stay on but put meaning behind his words. I would call upon them to put meaning behind the word democracy and respect the will of the Egyptian people.
Okay, thanks a lot for your input. And I'm also with El Farouk Kaki, who was a former candidate in federal elections right here in Toronto Centre, and is also a voice for issues with the Muslim communities in Canada, and also for LGBT issues. And you've also been a critic of the government's treatment of people of the LGBT community in Egypt before. Do you think this could be a positive thing for LGBT rights if they were able to get rid of Mubarak, or do you think it's more? What do you think?
Well, I mean, your question to Naveen was about why has it taken 30 years? And it's taken 30 years, and in some other parts of the Muslim and Arabic world even longer, because there's been a politics of divisiveness, of divide and conquer, right? We know that there's many issues around Palestinian human rights that need to be addressed, but many of the Arab governments have used this as the demonization of Israel as a means of deflecting commentary about internal human rights issues. And in Egypt in particular, queers, particularly gay men, have been also scapegoated as a way of deflecting the issues around poverty, lack of representation, all sorts of lack of opportunities, lack of proper employment options, and so on and so forth. So when I think with this popular uprising, with enough Egyptians saying enough is enough, what I'm hoping is that there is going to come out a unified discourse around human rights and about accountability. And that doesn't mean that things are going to change tomorrow, but maybe this is the road towards that change, and that's what I'm hopeful for, and that's why I'm here. And that's why I actually see a lot of LGBT people from the local community who are here today, because any advancement in general human rights will hopefully eventually lead to increased human rights awareness around gender issues, sexual orientation, and gender identity issues as well.
And also another issue you've been strong on is the vocal speaker on is the Palestinian issue. Do you think that if the Egyptian people are successful in overthrowing Mubarak, that could be a good sign for the people who are blockaded in Gaza? Because Egypt's very complicit, has always been complicit. It's
extremely complicit, and Mubarak, like so many other despotic rulers in that regime, are simply interested in keeping their power and their money base, and not actually in a larger human rights conversation for their own citizens or for the issue of Palestine and Palestinian displacement. So.
And I just have a final question. There's often Western commentators like to criticize the Arab and Muslim world for not being quote-unquote democratic, but it seems strange because the U.S. is always talking about freedom, and yet now that the Egyptian people are ready to oust their dictator, they seem hesitant to support the Egyptian people. And I mean, does this sort of show the difference between the U.S.'s idea of going in and giving quote-unquote freedom and real grassroots democracy?
Well, I think the U.S., when it speaks of democracy, actually speaks of laissez-faire capital, actually means laissez-faire capitalism, and has had a very nasty and long history of supporting despotic rulers, whether it was Marcos in the Philippines, the former Shah of Iran, Saddam Hussein, and so on and so forth. And these are all allies until they become less than expedient for their larger narrative, or when they start to become costly to the profit margins of American transnationals and multinationals. So part of the frustration that many people in the developing or in the geopolitical South have is this hypocritical double standard of what is democracy when Western powers, even colonialism and neocolonial and the inheritors of neocolonialism, where they talk about human rights and they talk about democracy, they only talk about it when it's in their interest to, and not when it's in the interest of the local people to talk about it.
I'm with Ali Mallah of the Canadian Arab Federation. Yeah, could you tell me what they're chanting there in the center?
Well, there are a variety of changes here, chants here, reflecting the reality in Egypt. One of the chants is, they stole our bread and our oil. Another one is, Mubarak, it's time to go, just leave. Another one is, appeal for the army. Don't get involved against us. Protect Egypt. So there are a variety of chances here. It's all focusing on unity for the Egyptian people and against the regime.
Okay, and what is it? Canadian Arab Federation's done any press releases or has a position?
Of course we did, and the Canadian Peace Alliance did as well. And it's a spontaneous populist movement, and we are here together, not only in solidarity with the people of Egypt, but also the people of Tunisia, the people of Yemen, and the people of Jordan, and anywhere in the Middle East, where people are oppressed and being brutalized.
Okay, is there a website we can check out?
Of course, you can visit the Canadian Arab Federation, you can visit the Canadian Peace Alliance, but also there are multiple Facebook about the Egyptian movement.
Okay, and one final question. What do you think of the Canadian government's response to this?
Well, before I ask the Canadian government, I want to ask the Canadian people. During the G20, we have 2 days of a police presence in the city of Toronto, and Toronto looked like a police city.
Yeah.
This is the reality of Egyptian people. This is the reality of Jordanian people. This is the reality of Yemeni people. It's every day with much more brutality, with much more human rights violation. As for the Canadian government, this is the most hypocritical government we ever had. They are on the side of the oppressor. They are on the side of a dictatorship regime simply because it serves their agenda.
Okay, thanks a lot for your time.
You're very welcome.
Ali Mallah, Canadian Arab Federation. One final question, Ali Mallah. What do you think this might mean for the future of Palestine if the people are able to overthrow Mubarak?
I think it's a great hope for people in Palestine because the Egyptian regime, unfortunately, and since the Camp David Accord and lately in the 1990 and 2000, has been acting as a buffer zone and as a frontline defender of the Israel against the Palestinian people, especially in Gaza. So therefore, we hope that this regime will change and the Palestinian people will have a better neighbor, a better ally, and they will help them with their struggle against their occupier.
Thanks a lot for your questions.